Good afternoon. My name is Zachary Ono. So we are going to talk about open source intelligence, passive in our recall. And our target selection today will be Fortune 500 company and C-suite officer. The Fortune 500 firm that will be subjected to the passive reconnaissance operation is Amazon, ranked one of the Fortune 500 list. The C-suite executive that will be subject of this passive reconnaissance operation is Jamie Golik, an Amazon board member. This company was chosen due to the executive online presence that it possesses. This includes thousands of subdomains, third-party applications, integrated and very visible leadership within the organization. The reason why Jameen Gulek will be a good target is that she presents a realistic attack surface. This includes an open available email address that is j.gulik@amazon.com. Board positions, Airbnb and Verizon, and previous work experience as a government official, as stated by Bond and Olanga 2021. Most OSINT operations start with identifiers such as real name, username, or email address. Stage 1 of the cyber operations. This lab was within the reconnaissance stage of the cyber key chain cycle, which refers to passive reconnaissance. As mentioned by Bond and Olanga 2021, passive reconnaissance includes collection of publicly available information that does not involve any direct interaction with the systems targeted. The techniques associated with passive reconnaissance is the MITRE ATT and CK matrix include T1591, gather victim organization information, and T1589, gather victim identity information. Passive reconnaissance acts as the base of penetration testing, providing input that will influence further steps such as active reconnaissance, scanning, and probing. Weaponization and delivery in the rebate 2023 knows that OSINT has been gaining increasing prominence because there are now more sources available, which are suitable for proactive risk mitigations. For an authorized penetration test, it is critical to conduct passive reconnaissance only. So the second diagram talk about cyber kill chain with recognized phase. Passive reconnaissance findings using Mitigo and OSINT framework. Passive information obtained from visualizing links between the domain name amazon.com or Amazon, the connected elements using Mitigo along with OSINT in a framework. OSINTframework.com categorized according to the identifiers in a type such as email, username, and domain names, which can be systematically gathered, is listed below. The OSINT framework categorizes information gathering tools according to the identifiers type, which help in systematic collection of information. Boy and Lolonga 2021. OSINT framework navigation tree. You see, the framework of the OSINT, framework. That on top is the email search, email verification, email breach check, and others. Domains and subdomains. Subdomains like aws.amazon.com, sellercentralamazon.com, and workday.amazon.com could be discovered using certificate transparency log. This implies that there are possibly entry points through which to log into Amazon. Passive domains enumerations is an OSINT method used during pre-penetration testing activities. Executive and employer data, like the Jimmy Good links email is written in the form first.last at amazon.com. The board membership, education history, and career history of the individual can be obtained from her LinkedIn profile. Wikipedia biography and company biography. Employee enumeration by searching through LinkedIn gave possible names for personal assistant and IT personnel. This is one of the titles used by executive officials according to recent research. Personal and professional links. The membership, previous government jobs, and presentation given by Gulick at various cybersecurity conferences have been openly sourced, such as information is helpful in creating plausible pretext. Other vectors, press release of AI development from Amazon and recruitment information providing technology stacks were also gathered. Information in email and people categories in the OSINT framework assisted in the automation process. All information was collected without making any contact with Amazon systems. The collected information was correlated for processing into intelligence in order to meet the need of conducting a spear phishing attack. List of 3 attacks. Attack innovators with priority levels, high, medium, and low. Number 1, spear phishing email, high priority. With the help of the email address of Jimmy Gulick and the fact that she sits on the board of several organizations, one can pretend to be a colleague. Urgency will depend on an upcoming board meeting or any initiative at Amazon. Executive phishing is known as CEO fraud and uses an executive's identity for its authorization to manipulate those below it. This type of attack has a high chance of success because subordinates hardly question the demands from their superiors. The second, credential harvesting via fake login in a portal. That is medium priority. The identified subdomains workday.amazon.com HR website is vulnerable to spoofing. By sending a targeted phishing email with a link to a fraudulent login page, credentials harvesting is possible. Once credentials have been obtained, hackers can gain literal access. As noted by Gowen, cybersecurity experts share the same expertise as criminals, except that their operations are legal with authorization. 3. Misconfigured S3 bucket scanning, low priority. A passive approach would involve identifying the publicly accessible S3 bucket through one of the bucket finder. Once located, the configured file or any document that may have been created internally will automatically be downloaded without active participation by the attacker. To get into the stage of reconnaissance, the process will include sending out the spare phishing email payload with a penetration test, as well as scanning the discovered subdomains for any open port or security vulnerability. According to Gillan, 2023, authorization is an important step that ensures that the penetration test is legal. In a legitimate penetration test, all activities are based on a signed ROE, that is rules of engagement. Spear phishing email, that's an example of spear phishing email. The spear phishing email are displayed in an email client or mock-up. It has the subject ROE Q3 board meeting, AWS AI strategy review, action required. So this coming from Andy JC, and JC at AWSAmazon.com. Spoofed. Then the board, Jamie. For the upcoming board meeting, draft agenda attached. I need your final comment as the A1's AWS A1 competitive landscape slide. I have uploaded the working documents to the secure portal. This because of yesterday's news about the Anthropic Partnership Extension, the Finance Committee has asked for a last-minute update. Please approve access and add your note by end of day. And Christian perspective on legal authorization and ethical consideration. Penetration testing from the perspective of Christianity is a practice that resonates with the Bible's teaching as stewardship, truth, righteousness, and love towards one's neighbor. Mark 12:31. So according to Gowen, having a firm foundation of a strong Christian faith and work in Christ, cybersecurity professionals may earn the trust of individuals, because those who are guided by Jesus' teaching of do unto others as you would have done to you, Luke 6:31, are unlikely to use hacking skills maliciously. Jones 2025 continues on this note, proposing that cybersecurity does not have to be limited to algorithms, but also include spirituality, ethics, and wisdom based on diving command and virtual ethics theories. Legal authorization. Penetration tests require explicit and written authorization, rules of engagement, like contract. In the United States, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act punishes unauthorized access, but according to Van Buren versus United States 2021, there need to be specific intention to access beyond authority for it to be criminalized. Authorized tests such as a legal protection from prosecution. According to Gilliam 2023, unless penetration testers have proper authorization to do so, they are in essence carrying out an authorized access. Further privacy acts like GDPR and CCPA restrict the use of personal information, even when such information is public knowledge. According to Goulet 2024, the penetration tester must define methodologies and scope and build a legal context. Ethical consideration from Christian perspective, consent, and transparency. Centered to Christian integrity, all testing is done with the subject's informed consent. Parallel, the idea of honesty, Proverbs 12:22. So according to Gilliam, testers should be transparent with their clients as to how they test, what tools they use, and which techniques they employ. Stewardship. As God's trustees in his creation, Genesis 1:21, our duty involve securing digital access and protecting people from cyber threats. According to Jones 2025, stewardship includes the accountability of individuals with respect to the resources allocated to them, data and information technology within the Christian concept of stewardship. Do not harm. Methods do not cause disruption to the network. Results are communicated in ways that avoid doing actual damage. Gilliam 2023 says that organization must make sure that none of the above is causing any damage to their employees, clients, or stakeholders. Redemption over exploitation. The purpose of these activities is system improvement rather than exploitation. That is why Christians can act as watchmen to warn others. Ezekiel 33:6. Jones 2025 asserts that atonement and forgiveness are possible, but ethical cybersecurity requires compliance with regulations, gaining knowledge, being responsible, and improving morally. Addressing the tension of deception. The spade phishing exercise entails deception and may appear as odd, with the principle of being, truthful as stipulated, by the Bible. But in an approved, simulation where all parties have consented, deception is just a means of achieving an end. In his writing, Jones 2025 knows that social engineer, the fraudster, and the inside threat actor often pretend to be credible sources to take advantage of trust, but unlike them, the Christian hackers pretend to do so to check on the security weaknesses of the organization. The findings from Ruby's 2023 study, relating to OSINT acceptance are consistent with the role of transparency and legitimacy. According to his, respective survey, OSINT awareness, in addition to low, privacy concerns, is an important characteristic associated with the acceptance of OSINT in cybersecurity. Thus, it is imperative that Christian cybersecurity experts push, for OSINT procedures that are transparent and consider privacy rights. In summary, if carried out with the necessary authorization and following a Christian code of ethics, passive reconnaissance and simulated attacks help in achieving greater good, by protecting companies and stakeholders from any potential malicious threat. As stated by the Gowen, not only do we not steal, although we could, we prevent theft through protection of information systems. Thank you.